Hi guys, the old buddy Yorshak here. Right, Comicsgate is devolving into your typical hierarchical struggle for control and influence, just like any new thing, any organisation, any new movement inevitably does, where you have some of the old guard and you have a new charismatic person who's bringing something with him from before, some aspect of legitimacy and authority and status to the movement. And it appears to me that he's kind of taken it over. Yeah, and I'm talking about Ethan Fan Sciver and Capn Cummings. Capn Cummings tweeted out, what's the date today? The 4th. He tweeted this out 2 days ago. Well, at Ethan Fan Sciver, can keep the money. I don't want his shitty Ninja Turtle ripoff. Do I need to fly down and say it to your face to be a man? Or are you going to tell me to kill myself? Seems comic pros always end up being the worst people, like D&C has stated multiple times. So Capn Cummings is accusing Ethan Fan Sciver of being a new gatekeeper of comic books. Yeah, he probably is actually. Seeing his personality type, looking into what Ethan Fan Sciver has done before on Facebook in the groups that he had there, he always tends to end up leading a cult of personality type of situation, with him as the fulcrum and all these different characters then almost sparking from his central, like a Green Lantern battery. There's this guy called what's his name? I've seen him on some of the live streams with Ethan Fan Sciver. He's got a squeaky voice. He sounds very New York Jewish, but he's not. And he's got quite a good backstory about him being a banker and coming from a rich family, and he has to take some time off from the banking industry, and whilst he's taking time off, he's going to appear on the internet and drink whiskey on live streams, and it's all very not believable. But the character is very entertaining in a Howard Stern radio show kind of way, and Ethan Fan Sciver is kind of the hub around all this new stuff sparking off. I think it's just a personality type thing with Ethan Fan Sciver. He's dare I say it, he's an alpha male who will dominate any group that he comes in contact with. And when he was working for DC, I'm sure a large part of his frustration was that he wasn't getting that sense of being at the centre of anything anymore. He was just a very small cog in the wheel, and he didn't really have any influence anymore, as the people he was working with were obviously, politically speaking, on the opposite end of the spectrum, him being a Republican and them being all a bunch of Democrats. So he's found his new group, as Ethan Fan Sciver. He's found a new little group to take over, and that group is Comicsgate. And I think what Capn Cummings is doing right now is reacting against a hierarchical, almost natural, organic even, but a takeover nonetheless. Ethan Fan Sciver obviously has made money with Cyberfrog, and that's lends a lot of weight to a feeling of credibility to the notion that he's taken over Comicsgate, because that is kind of what is happening right now. Ethan Fan Sciver is taking over Comicsgate through force of personality, and because of the status that he's bringing to the movement, because obviously he's a talented comic book artist who's coming from the mainstream. And people like Capn Cummings, he's not even a creator. Comic book speaking, obviously he's a YouTube creator. And our boy Sack, who, well, we haven't even seen his comic yet. We don't know if it's any good. With Ethan Van Sciver, we know he's a good artist. We know that when Cyber comes out, I don't know if the story's going to be any good, but we know it's going to look good anyway, don't we? So he's got that weight of competence and that weight of achievement behind him. And because he's obviously, verbally speaking, quite a high IQ guy with some charisma, a lot of charm about him, a lot of ambition, because he's almost surging in his, how old is he now? In his 40s. He's surging into a new portion of his career. And he's got his foot right down on the pedal to the metal kind of thing. That's the right saying. He's got his foot on the accelerator and he's pushing down real hard, and he's deliberately accelerating past some of the Comicsgate people, like Capn Cummings, who is just a commentator and doesn't have the weight of a product behind him. So Capn Cummings isn't trying to sell you anything other than his opinion on YouTube, while Ethan Van Sciver is in full salesman mode. Not only is he selling his comic book, he's selling his t-shirts. He's trying to take over as well as the new commentator for the Star Wars stuff. So he is really putting himself at the centre of the cultural debate, the cultural wars, in regards to everything social justice warrior related. Much as Sargon of Akkad was doing a couple of years ago. Sargon of Akkad isn't quite as relevant anymore because it's not really about social justice warriors. It's about the infiltration of our institutions over the years, starting since the 1950s, where our entire society in the West has swung over to the far left. So now the far left is the mainstream. Look at Europe, look at England at the moment. That's where America was going, but obviously Donald Trump has been a bit of a speed bump. Will he be enough to avert this? I hope so. America's a little bit different to Europe and the UK, but there does seem to be a swing towards the left as societies get more decadent and the welfare state starts to grow. So perhaps it is inevitable for America to swing to the left. And the demographics are changing with the advent of third wave feminism and female empowerment, which is basically just trying to, is that something in my beard? No. Trying to convince women not to have children, just lowering the white birth rates. So it's maybe inevitable that the left takes over and ends up ruining society like the termites that they are. And Ethan Van Sciver is a bit much like Donald Trump, trying to maybe resist the inevitable, but in relation to Comicsgate, speaking on that subject only, this is a takeover based on personality, based on status, and it's quite inevitable, and I don't really like to see it happening, personally speaking. So I'll give you my opinion on it. Whose side am I coming out on? Am I on the side of Ethan Van Sciver or am I on the side of Capn Cummings? Well, I always talk about reforming the shield wall and getting back into groups, but the truth of the matter is that as an individual, I don't know if it's a cultural thing or a genetic thing, a little bit of both perhaps for myself, but I am a very individual kind of guy. I do my own thing by myself. I don't want to be constrained by the groups. So I'm not really about collectivism in my own life, even though I recognise that it is stronger than the individual. I do advocate for hierarchies, because hierarchies are absolutely essential if society is going to prosper and move forward in the future. If you try to even out the income and get rid of meritocracy, then you've got a communist situation which never works out well for everyone. So you need people, even if they're assholes, even if they're people that you don't particularly like on a personal basis, you need the individuals to be allowed to rise to the top on force of ambition, on force of high verbal IQ, and on force of you know, what even Sciver is doing, using his personality type to basically take over a Comicsgate movement. So I'm kind of split when I think about this. I recognise that it's inevitable. I recognise that it's the kind of situation that we really do need to happen in society as a whole. So I can't really say it's a bad thing that someone like Ethan Sciver is taking over Comicsgate, even if I'm not, you know, Mr. Ethan Sciver #1 fan. I want to go on his live streams. I want to have him, you know, thumbs me up on Twitter or something. I don't really care about that. I don't really care if Ethan Sciver acknowledges that I exist or not. I really don't give a shit, really. But I do recognise that the reality of the situation is that Captain Cummings is pissed off because he started all this, and Ethan Sciver is taking over. And if you stop looking at all the miniature, is that miniature? And the little details. If you start looking at the little details and start looking at the bigger picture, what you'll see then is that it's just inevitable. It's hierarchy in action, and it's the Pareto principle in action, and that sometimes the people who are not always the nicest people, sometimes it's the biggest assholes with the most charisma, the most ambition, and the force of personality which Sciver's got, that take over a movement. And yes, what's happening with Comicsgate. So yeah, I've got I'm split on the issue. If it was a case of me picking out who I would want to be my buddy, I'd definitely go for Capn Cummings, because I'm more on his wavelength. But I would not want to stop someone like Ethan Sciver doing what he's going to do, even though he's a bit of an asshole. He really is, you know. He really is a bit of an asshole. Look at his past. And I probably wouldn't get on with him on a personal one-to-one basis, because I'd find him a little bit overpowering and a bit manipulative, and I'm sure he'd always be trying to get something out of me, and I don't really like that kind of person in my own life. So there we go. Split. I'm split on the matter. I'm torn. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Hopefully you found something of interest amongst all the mispronounced words and rambling that I've just spewed out there onto the internet. So, is Ethan Sciver taking over Comicsgate? Yes he is. Do I like it? No, not really. But would I oppose it, and would I want to do anything about it to change it? I'm sticking to principles of hierarchy, and sticking to the principles of meritocracy. I can't really say anything against it. Got to stick to the principles first, even if the personalities involved, you know, might rub me up the wrong way. So, cheers. Thanks for checking out the vid. I'll be back later with some comic book reviews. Hopefully I can find a comic book in the store today that's not completely poisonous. You never know, you know. Hope for the best, expect the worst. So cheers, take care. I'll be back as always. Later. See you guys.